What we're seeing is this globalisation of online crime, but also the globalisation of Chinese crime, geographically diverse and also diverse in terms of activities. Where exactly is the crime?
10 years ago, I think you had to be probably really smart, very technical, but now with the crime as a service, you don't have to be so smart anymore.
Literally, hundreds of thousands of people work in scam compounds in countries like Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar.
Scam operations nowadays are a little bit like multinational global enterprises. They're diversifying their operations, they're going global.
They have development, they have recruiting, they have HR. Right now, today, the cost of cybercrime exceeds $15 trillion a year. By 2026, it will exceed $20 trillion at its current rate of growth, which might nip at the heels of China to become the second largest economy on Earth.
We're going to show you how Chinese mafias have revolutionized the trillion-dollar cybercrime industry, creating a global ecosystem where sophisticated criminal technology is available to all. It's cybercrime as a service, and law enforcement is struggling to keep up. We're starting in North London.
As a result of some intelligence we received, we were there on the morning to execute 2 search warrants at 2 addresses.
These officers are targeting a group of Chinese nationals who are allegedly selling SMS-blasters. With these devices, they can spam thousands of people at the same time.
Its aim is to ultimately impart you with your personal details, your money, your security information, that sort of thing. A common one that you might find will be a HMRC message advising that you've got a refund coming or something along those lines and encouraging you to click a link. My name's Ben Hurley. I'm a detective sergeant with a dedicated card and payment crime unit. It's a specialist police unit comprising of City of London Police, Metropolitan Police and UK Finance. We specialise in new emerging threats in the cyber-enabled fraud landscape, specifically targeting fraud against the banking industry. Stealing data is almost as lucrative as stealing money. Fraud accounts for 40% of all recorded crime. If you include cybercrime in that, it goes way above 50%, so we know it's vast.
An IMSI-catcher is similar to an SMS blaster, but it's more typically used for surveillance and tracking. They can intercept messages and steal data.
It could be carried on a backpack, it could be driven in the back of a vehicle.
It's illegal to own an IMSI-catcher, but they are available to buy or rent. We found several companies openly advertising IMSI-catchers on YouTube.
Let's have a look and see if I can find IMSI-catchers for backpacks. But you can see new ultralight backpack IMSI-catcher. So you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, somebody's walking through a shopping mall. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see the interface for the IMSI-catcher, implying that you're walking through a shopping mall, hundreds of people are walking around you, you're gathering data about all their phones as you go past them. Even if they catch you, the people behind the crime, they're in a different country, you can't get to them, and the people manufacturing the equipment, well, we're not targeting, preventing the import of that equipment to our countries.
IMSI-catchers show us how the line between scamming and spying has blurred. In 2023, in Norway, when police detected unusual radio signals near government buildings, they tracked down a Malaysian student and arrested him on suspicion of espionage.
After a few days, the investigation revealed that he wasn't actually spying. He was using a portable cell tower, a base station, to send out fake text messages. I indicted the guy for attempt of fraud on 244,000 people in Norway, and he got 4 years and 6 months in prison.
The suspect was using an IMSI-catcher he had shipped from Asia. Prosecutors believe it was supplied as crime as a service.
He got the equipment shipped from Taiwan to Brunei, and they started to test the equipment there. Also, they have a software they use that can also probably be bought at a darknet, like a crime as a service software that you actually just buy. All links point to China. And we saw that a lot of the attempts on draining the bank accounts were done with IP addresses from China. So we believe that the people behind and the people that helped the guy were located in China at that point of time.
The economics of crime has grown to a point where the criminals can buy from an a la carte menu of methods that they will then assemble together. Although the assembly is innovative, the building blocks have been established for many, many years, and it's just about finding new, novel ways to work around those controls and to take money out of your pocket.
There are other ways too that cybercrime and cyber espionage have come together.
Today, the only difference between cybercrime and cyber espionage is the outcome. Cyber criminals want to use the same methods that cyber spies use. My name is Eric O'Neill. My claim to fame and my background in the FBI was to go undercover in FBI headquarters to catch the legendary spy Graysuit, that was his code name, who we learned was Robert Philip Hansen, a decorated supervisory special agent for the FBI, who for 22 of his 25 years in service to the FBI was also the Soviet Union and then the Russian Federation's top spy in the US intelligence community.
As syndicates grow more powerful, they have also professionalized. They now influence governments and recruit intelligence assets.
They have development, they have recruiting, they have HR, and they do quite a deal of recruiting from the best in the business, intelligence services. And these spies, who are trained and incredibly sophisticated at launching attacks, are helping cyber criminals use all of the traditional espionage techniques to fool a person into giving them access. Right now, today, the cost of cybercrime exceeds $15 trillion a year. By 2026, it will exceed $20 trillion at its current rate of growth, which might nip at the heels of China to become the second largest economy on Earth.
The Secret Service announced that it dismantled a massive telecommunications threat to the city.
In October, the US Secret Service took down several massive SIM farms across New York. The authorities believe the equipment was being used by scammers and nation-state actors.
These devices allowed anonymous encrypted communications between potential threat actors and criminal enterprises, enabling criminal organizations to operate undetected.
The next case shows even more clearly how cybercrime is on sale as a service. Known as the Smishing Triad, this criminal syndicate sells kits and subscriptions.
The latest holiday scam that combines phishing and text messages. And in this scam, data thieves want you to believe the message is coming from the post office.
My wife, as many other people in the US, got a text message from what seemed to be the United States Postal Service. Just because they caught her a bad time, like many other people, she had entered her information. And so that kind of infuriated me a little bit.
But Smith hacks companies for a living. Legally, he tests their defenses. And he saw a chance to turn the tables on the scammers. He exploited security flaws on the fake websites, and that gave him access to files and data. Here he found a Telegram account selling scamming kits like the one used to target his wife.
The Telegram link I found was to the user himself who ran the whole operation. I reached out to the character and chatted with them, just pretending I was a sort of student who, just like them, was interested in getting into creating phishing kits, maybe potentially working for them at some point. I was able to coerce out of him that he was also a student and he was messing around and kind of created that phishing operation and realized its business potential, essentially.
According to one estimate, the network of scammers using these particular kits made $15 billion in 2023. Smith mapped out where all the kits and subscriptions were purchased.
A large number of them are focused over here in the southern coastal area of China, down in Shanghai region, over some in Taiwan, and then some in Vietnam down into the Philippines. The administrator posted a short video on New Year's with this. As you can see, looks like a smaller room, most likely a college dorm, it seems. Seems like he had a good year that year with income. There's thousands of kits out there just because it's so easy to create one. All it is simply a form. They just change in the images around it. You can just pump out those forms day after day, targeting new groups, new customer requests even. The emergence of AI coding tools, it makes it a lot easier for even just a mid-level or low-level developer to create an application like that.
The democratization of crime is creating a new generation of fraudsters, committing old crimes with new tools. Now, small-time scammers use deepfake AI apps and dodgy crypto investment schemes to rip off people. We're in Nigeria to meet Andy, not his real name. Deepfake AI software is making his job a lot easier.
I'm only into the romance and the investment. The romance first before the investment comes in. It's intertwined together. You lure them into buying what you're selling. And when this person goes into debt and probably lose their house, you'd feel bad because you've lost the clients. Sometimes you are aware of the harm you caused. You're in this for the money actually. Work requires your time. Work requires your effort. Work requires your dedication. Work requires your discipline. It takes days, weeks, sometimes months, because you have to gain the trust of that individual. Europeans are more vulnerable to being a target. They are always lonely. Getting to know personal details about them. Then you get to know the kind of work they do, what kind of job they're into. I'd say it's like a gamble. You roll the dice and hope to get 6. Technologies that have really helped the job, which is the AI itself. Because without it, you can't video call. Profile of the person you're impersonating, using the face to make video calls, it has really helped. My dream was always to be a lawyer. But you know, life happens, so the dream has to stop somewhere. I don't work with anyone, I work alone. There's no particular syndicate, it's just me, myself, and I.
When most scammers start out, they usually start doing petty schemes online, particularly romance scams. There's people working together in small groups. Sometimes it's because you need one person to create the fake website, you need one person pick the money when the money is sent to them. So in that way, it is kind of organized, but oftentimes you also find lone wolves. Nigeria kind of over-indexes for the amount of internet scams that gets done in Nigeria versus the coverage that Nigeria gets. Other countries, China, India, even the US, for example, there's a lot of scams that happens in this country. They don't get the same reputational harm, for example, that Nigeria does.
As legitimate Chinese businesses expand into Africa and around the world, so too are criminal syndicates.
800 people were arrested in Nigeria for their involvement in a crypto romance scam, including 148 Chinese and 40 Filipinos.
We've seen the emergence of Chinese gangs or syndicates, if you will, who are now engaging in scams from Nigeria. In December 2024, there was a big raid on a compound here in Lagos, where the EFCC, which is Nigeria's anti-corruption agency, said they had arrested about 150 Chinese nationals who were engaging in scams in Nigeria. And I think it kind of shows you the transnational nature of these scams. And if we are to believe what the EFCC said, it was these guys are also, in a way, training sort of the new generation of would-be scammers. And I know there's been a level of cooperation between Nigerian authorities and Chinese authorities as well.
There is a storyline and a timeline to how this global situation with online organized crime, online fraud developed. And I think the genesis of this problem was certainly Macau. My name is Martin Perbrick. I've been involved in the research and investigation of organized crime for over 35 years. My career started in the late 1980s in Hong Kong in the Royal Hong Kong Police, largely in political intelligence and criminal intelligence.
In the early 2000s, vast fortunes were made as millions of Chinese nationals travelled to Macau to gamble. Junkets were responsible for collecting gambling debts in mainland China, and they often had links to organised crime. When gambling empires expanded across Asia, the criminals did too.
And there were certain tipping points that exacerbated this situation with this growth of organised crime. I think the first tipping point was 2017 in the Philippines. President Duterte issued an executive order to prevent the provincial gambling authorities that had evolved in the Philippines from taking on any more customers, mostly Chinese entities, junkets, for example, and centralize the system under PAGCOR, the Philippine Gaming Corporation. So there was a centralized national licensing system for offshore gambling operators, Philippines offshore gambling operators, POGOs, as they're called in the Philippines. With this legitimacy almost from President Duterte, they diversified even further into new criminal business. So going from online gambling, they went to online fraud, online sexual services, etc., etc. The second tipping point was around 2020 with COVID-19. The gambling business in Asia changed from a physical business to an online business overnight because customers couldn't travel. They diversified further into online fraud.
This expansion into different jurisdictions has created problems for law enforcement.
Where exactly is the crime? Where's the victim? Maybe in the US, maybe in China. Where are the servers located for that online fraud? Maybe in Taiwan, maybe in Nebraska. Where are the people located? Everywhere, because they're extremely mobile. So where's the crime?
Many of the scam perpetrators are also victims, tricked, trafficked, and then trapped in scam compounds where they're forced to take part in cyber fraud.
My name is John Wojcik. I'm a former security researcher working with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, focusing on Asian organized crime in Southeast Asia. What we've been seeing play out in Southeast Asia in the past few years really speaks to the convergence of transnational organized crime. Many large Asian crime syndicates began to congregate around special economic zones, special regions which are often militia-controlled around key border territories, and other vulnerable and often lawless parts of the region to set up their operations. They did so through what appeared to be unregulated infrastructure or land-based casinos, which on one hand did house gambling operations, but off of the back of that, criminal groups were able to diversify the types of online operations taking place within them, providing various criminal services from money laundering to a safe place for cybercrime syndicates to engage in their business. Estimates ranged between 200 all the way up to 500,000 victims of trafficking for forced criminality who have been lured and deceived and are ultimately trapped in these criminal compounds, forced to commit scams and other cybercrime.
Now, the United States has charged the chairman of the Cambodian conglomerate Prince Group with operating a sprawling cyber fraud empire that resulted in the seizure of Bitcoin valued at about $15 billion.
Governments are taking action. In October, US and UK authorities targeted the Prince Group with sanctions. The Cambodian conglomerate is accused of running scam compounds and making $30 million a day from cyber fraud, and of bribing Chinese officials. The UK raided properties in London and on the Isle of Man, and in Washington seized $15 billion in crypto linked to the group. Prince Group categorically rejects the allegations that it and its chairman are engaged in any criminality. Prince Group signed a 99-year lease to develop an island resort in Palau. In this strategically important archipelago that recognizes Taiwan and has a US radar base, Chinese gangsters have been accused of political interference on behalf of Beijing.
One good illustration of the criminal infiltration in Palau was an individual called Wan Kwok Koi.
Wan, also known as Broken Tooth, is a sanctioned Macau triad boss with links to scam compounds in Cambodia. Since his release from prison, he's been active on social media and at events across Asia.
And he's turned up in many places around the world, often espousing the benefits of reunification of China and Taiwan. And that's because he's been cultivated by PRC agencies for these United Front purposes. And United Front is a strategy to alienate your enemies by creating as many friends as possible to your point of view, obviously the PRC's point of view. In Palau, he seems to have established a Palau Hongmen Association. Hongmen have traditionally been overseas Chinese associations, but often corrupted by triads, secret societies for criminal purposes. So we have this nexus of online criminal business, criminals operating it, and Chinese Communist United Front.
Wan and the World Hongmen History and Culture Association were sanctioned by the US Treasury in 2020 for allegedly engaging in criminal activities in Cambodia and Palau. Wan denies the allegations.
本人也爱我们自己的国家，世界红门的小文化社会，从来都是遵纪守法，未曾假借“一带一路”名义从事任何违法的行为。
The locations where these criminal enterprises are being established, or the hubs, are not just Southeast Asia, not just the Middle East, not Africa, that they're closer to home in the UK. And the Isle of Man is a very good example of how that online gambling business, which is criminal in most circumstances, was run in parallel with the online fraud business.
In the Isle of Man, the Prince Group was involved in online gambling and allegedly money laundering. But it wasn't the only Chinese-run company on the island caught up in such a probe.
Seven arrests have been made and business premises raided as part of a fraud and money laundering investigation into King Gaming Limited.
The King Gaming entity was operated by a Chinese businessman. King Gaming had invested in the Isle of Man, purchased the license, gambling license legitimacy, set up a commercial hub. This illustrated very clearly how the Isle of Man was, for many groups like this, another useful hub.
King Gaming had said it was going to bring hundreds of new jobs into the island. However, these plans didn't come to fruition.
Here we are, and you can see the sign here, another view of the office, and KG King Gaming, a Jade Tree Limited development, iconic international headquarters. And so we can see how far they got.
A court in China had convicted a number of people who worked with an Isle of Man company that was linked to King Gaming. They convicted them on grounds that they had committed investment fraud. This activity had actually taken part, according to Chinese court records, from 2019 to 2022, i.e. all the way through when the administration of the Isle of Man was really pushing for King Gaming and King Gaming was expanding in the Isle of Man. So it really raises a lot of questions around the due diligence, how much oversight really was there, and what due diligence was done on the individuals who came into the country, came onto the island and did work from there.
King Gaming was allegedly run by a Chinese and Dominican national named Liang Lingfei. He hasn't been convicted of a crime on the Isle of Man, and the FT has not been able to reach him for comment. He's been linked to major criminal figures in Asia. In this photo, he's on stage with an alleged sanctioned crime boss.
Liang Lingfei, or better known as Bill Morgan on the Isle of Man, is really someone who straddles two different worlds. On one hand, he represents one of the largest investors in history on the island. And on the other hand, you have a gentleman who is directly connected to sanctioned triad leaders. Zhao Wei is one of the most infamous characters in Southeast Asia.
While the government of the Philippines was really cracking down on these illegal gambling operations, the POGOs, carrying out raids, suspending or cancelling licenses, the Isle of Man, in a way, saw a business opportunity there, a way to attract what they called credible operators into the country.
Come over to the Isle of Man, we'll take care of you, you'll be able to carry on over here. It gave the message that they'd be welcome on the Isle of Man. You know, that just made a bad look considerably worse.
The Isle of Man is just a few miles off the coast of Britain, and all this raises serious questions about the UK's vulnerability to alleged cybercriminals, but also to espionage.
Significant figures in the Chinese gambling community, and particularly the scam compound community, operating in third countries, are closely linked to the political authorities and have political patronage and top cover for what they're doing. And that's only one step removed from, obviously, them paying back the state for that with favours that the state wants carried out. And so it doesn't come as a surprise to me to think that we're only one step away from that.
When it comes to China, the UK needs to defend itself resolutely against threats and seize the opportunities that demonstrably serve our nation. Our Five Eyes allies share the same pragmatic approach. The policy choices lie in exactly which lines you draw, which balances you strike.
When the criminals evolve, we have to evolve as well, because we have to get under the skin of the criminal to see the latest tricks in the books. So of course it's hard, but I think law enforcement is trying to keep up, at least, with the criminals.
The criminals don't need to win every time to make a lot of money. It's like buying a lottery ticket. They buy lots and lots of cheap lottery tickets. They don't need to win that often to get big jackpot returns that justify their expenditure in sending out those messages.
Governments are also rapidly realizing that they won't be able to investigate and prosecute their way out of these challenges, and fundamentally that business just can't continue as usual.
With the advancement of AI, it means a lot of the processes and actions that a fraudster would have to do themselves can all be automated, hugely increasing the people they reach out to, hugely increasing the victims.
So if law enforcement can't solve the problem, we have to solve the problem. We have to be better at identifying the attacks, of not falling for the deception that is being used in email and texting and other devices that fool us and trick us into handing over the keys to our data. Otherwise, we'll never make the world safe from cyber attacks.
It's a complex challenge with organised crime syndicates, lone wolves, the willing and the enslaved. New technologies are turbocharging online fraud, from IMSI-catchers to scamming kits that come with IT support. It's all available at the click of a button. Anyone could be the next target, the next victim, including you.